Today, we are looking at one of the most dramatic stories in history,
Absolutely. The collapse of the Qing Dynasty in China.
the very last empire. And it ruled for centuries, but then just completely fell apart in less than 100 years.
It's a key moment. We're talking about an empire that controlled over 400 million people. It looked unstoppable.
So our goal here is to break down the 5 main reasons this happened.
Yeah, we're going to look at how internal weakness, things like corruption, met this huge external force.
And see how by 1912 the whole thing was, well, basically doomed.
Exactly. It wasn't a quick event. It was a long, slow decline.
Yeah.
Let's start with the problems that were festering inside.
Okay, so this internal decay, the government in Beijing was just losing its grip.
That's right. And a huge part of the problem was population.
It just exploded, right?
It soared past 400 million by the mid-1800s. The problem was the amount of farmland didn't grow with it,
So you have more and more people trying to live off the same amount of land.
which means chronic food shortages. You have millions of peasants who are desperate.
And on top of that, you have corrupt local officials.
Absolutely rampant corruption. The central government was too far away to really see what was happening, so local officials were skimming taxes.
And things like irrigation canals or grain storage for emergencies.
They were just neglected. The officials would squeeze peasants for tax money even when they were starving.
So people start to lose faith in the system itself. They lose faith in this idea of the mandate of heaven.
That concept is so important. The mandate of heaven was like a contract, you know?
If the emperor ruled well, heaven approved.
Exactly. But if you have famine, floods, rebellion, it's a sign that heaven has withdrawn its support.
And revolution becomes justified.
Right. And when the emperor in Beijing seems disconnected and can't fix things, people start to believe the mandate is gone. The country was basically a tinderbox.
And just as that's happening, an outside force comes in and lights the match.
Yes, the foreign powers, specifically Britain, found a really devastating way to exploit that weakness.
The opium trade.
The British were buying tons of Chinese tea, but China didn't really want any British goods. So Britain was losing a lot of silver.
And their solution was to get China addicted to opium, which they grew in India.
It was a calculated economic move, and it created a massive addiction crisis at every level of Chinese society.
So when the Chinese government finally tried to stop the illegal trade,
Britain declared war, the Opium Wars.
and this is where that technological gap becomes painfully obvious.
It's brutal. China's military was so outdated. Their wooden ships were just no match for Britain's new steam-powered iron warships.
The defeats were humiliating.
And the treaties that followed were even worse. China was forced to open up its ports to foreign trade and pay huge amounts in war debts.
And these payments had to be made in silver.
Right, in a currency unit called a tael. Imagine hauling that much physical silver out of the country. It wrecked the value of their own currency.
But there was another insult in those treaties, something called extraterritoriality.
Yes. It's a technical term, but it's simple to understand.
It basically means that if a foreigner, say a British person, committed a crime in China,
The Chinese police couldn't touch them. They wouldn't be tried in a Chinese court.
they'd be judged by their own country's laws on Chinese soil.
Exactly. It's a massive statement that says the Chinese emperor isn't even in charge of his own country.
A total humiliation.
And just as the empire's dealing with that,
Mm-hmm.
this internal bomb goes off.
The Taiping Rebellion.
One of the deadliest civil wars in all of human history.
It's unbelievable. And it was led by a man, Hong Xiuquan, who believed he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ.
Yeah. His goal was to create a new heavenly kingdom.
Oh.
And they were incredibly successful at first. They captured the major city of Nanjing.
They controlled a huge part of southern China for more than a decade.
The fighting was just, I mean, the numbers are hard to even imagine.
Around 20 million people died.
20 million. That's comparable to all the deaths in World War I.
Mhm.
And this was a civil war.
And it showed just how weak the Qing government's own army was.
They couldn't defeat the rebels on their own. They had to rely on local militias, led by local strongmen.
Which means the central government in Beijing is losing even more power to the provinces, right?
Precisely. They survived the rebellion, but they were hollowed out. They had no choice but to try and modernize.
So they launched this self-strengthening movement.
Right. The idea was to build modern shipyards, arsenals, factories to try and catch up to the West.
But it was basically doomed from the start.
It really was. The conservative officials in the court resisted it. They cared more about keeping traditional Confucian values and their own power than they did about real change.
And the money that was supposed to go to modernization?
A lot of it just vanished into corruption. The perfect example is the marble boat.
Oh, this is incredible.
Money that was meant for the Navy, for actual warships, was used to build a giant decorative pleasure boat made of stone in the Summer Palace Lake.
A boat that couldn't move.
It tells you everything about their priorities. At the same time, the education system was still focused on memorizing ancient texts.
Not on science or engineering.
So even if you build a modern factory, you don't have the experts to run it.
And the proof that it all failed came when they went to war with Japan.
Right. Japan had actually modernized successfully. Yeah. And they completely crushed China in the 1890s.
At the center of all this resistance to change was one person, really. Empress Dowager Cixi.
She was the real power behind the throne for almost 50 years.
A master of court politics, but incredibly conservative.
Deeply conservative. So in 1898, when the young emperor actually tried to push through some radical reforms,
The 100 Days of Reform.
Cixi put a stop to it. She basically staged a coup, put the emperor under house arrest, and had the reformers executed.
She was choosing to protect the old power structure over saving the country.
That's a good way to put it. And by 1900, the country was just ready to explode. All that frustration boiled over in the Boxer Rebellion.
This was an anti-foreign movement, right?
Yes, a secret society called the Boxers.
Mm-hmm.
They believed that through martial arts and magic rituals, they could become immune to Western bullets.
And they started attacking foreigners, missionaries, and Chinese Christians.
And in a truly disastrous move, Empress Cixi decided to back them.
She declared war on all 8 of the major foreign powers at once.
It was an incredible miscalculation. An international army marched in, crushed the Boxers, and occupied Beijing. Cixi had to flee the capital.
And the punishment was the Boxer Protocol, another massive payment.
The biggest yet, 450 million taels of silver. It was a debt designed to cripple the dynasty for decades.
After that total humiliation, they finally realized they had to change. For real this time.
They started something called the New Policies. This was a last desperate attempt at modernization.
They got rid of the old exam system, started modern schools, even began training a new army with Western methods.
But these reforms cost a fortune. So they had to raise taxes, which made everyone even angrier at them.
And there's a huge irony here.
There is. By creating modern schools, they created a new generation of educated people who could see just how incompetent the government was.
And by creating the new army, they trained the very soldiers who would eventually overthrow them.
Their own reforms created their enemies. The final snark, though, was about railways.
The government tried to take control of local railway projects that had been paid for by private Chinese investors.
They wanted to use the railways as collateral for more foreign loans. To the people, it looked like they were selling off the country to foreigners.
This led to a huge revolt, the Railway Protection Movement. And to stop it, the government moved its new army troops.
Leaving other areas like the city of Wuchang basically undefended.
And that's where the revolution started. By accident.
Literally an accident. A bomb went off in a revolutionary hideout. The police found a list of names of soldiers in the new army who were part of the plot.
So facing execution, those soldiers had no choice.
They mutinied. They took over the city and its arsenal, and the uprising just spread.
Other provinces saw how weak the government was and just declared independence.
The whole system just crumbled. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, a 6-year-old boy named Pui, was forced to abdicate.
He gave up the throne.
Right. And a general, Yuan Shikai, cut a deal. The emperor could keep his title and live in the Forbidden City, but he had no power.
And just like that, more than 2,000 years of imperial rule in China was over.
It was. The Republic of China was declared. But that didn't bring peace. The country fell into chaos, the warlord era.
But it did allow for huge social changes.
Oh, absolutely. Old traditions like foot binding started to disappear. New movements for things like women's rights began to grow. China started to become a modern nation.
So it's clear, really, a combination of all these things. Internal rot, population pressure, foreign invasion. It was just too much.
The whole system was too rigid. The ruins of that empire really are a warning that even the most powerful states can fall if they refuse to adapt to a changing world.
Good luck with your studies.